Hi folks, it's Darren Ray Fonso talking about workers' compensation or labor and industries here in Washington State and across America. Tonight what we're talking about is politics and Democrats and Republicans and Bernie-crats. Interesting enough, I have two of them that all fall under Bernie-crats actually. One of them we're going to hear from first is Scott Stafne. He's a self-proclaimed Republican, log cabin Republican from Washington State, and he is running for U.S. Congress. And I will let him explain to you about workers' comp, and then after that you will hear from Roza Calderon, who is a Democrat and a Bernie-crat out of California. She will tell us about workers' comp, and she calls it a war, and one calls it a genocide. So let's hear from both sides, and we will hear from the Republican tell us how it's a genocide, and then we will hear from the Democrat out of California tell us the solution that nobody seems to want to do on either side. Yeah, both parties are in on it. But here we go. Let's listen to the candidates. Let's listen to the candidates tell us about workers' comp in America today.
Hi, welcome to our Revolution Washington Bernie-crats Coalition vetting interview of Scott Stafne from Congressional District 1 here in Washington State. Welcome, Scott. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Go into the next, some of it falls into what we have lined up already. So
okay,
if that's all right. So yeah, I think we're done with the list right now, I believe.
So thank you, viewing audience. We will get to those questions. And if they related to what we've already discussed as a group before we started, then we'll wait to get to those topics. So thank you. All right, Rhonda.
Actually, like I said, one of the couple of questions in here did relate to what I was going to ask anyway next. So I'm going to actually bring in from the audience here. They've asked it a little bit better than I was going to, so I'm going to use theirs. So we regulate spark plugs on a national level. We feel we should regulate I feel we should regulate state workers' comp laws on a federal level, how we treat all injured workers across the country, so it's equal for all. The question is, will you support Senator Sanders and Patty Murray and Tom Perez's call for minimal federal oversight for our broken state workers' comp systems? And do you feel we need a state fix or a federal fix?
Let me say, first of all, I appreciate the problem. I did workers' comp law at the federal level for longshoremen. I also have done it at the state level, and it has gotten worse and worse and worse. And let me explain why I think it's happening. I think we are experiencing a pre-planned genocide, and I think people simply need to open their eyes to see it. We see it with regard to workers' comp. We see
everybody, and welcome to We the People. Tonight, We the People meet Roza Calderon. She's running in California's 4th Congressional District, and she is a geoscientist. And I am very excited to talk to her about what that is and what she does and all the activism that she's been doing, according to her website. Roza, thank you for joining us on We the People. We're going to go to Laura Livengood. Thank you for your response. I really appreciate that answer. That was honest, and I appreciate that. Laura's got some questions. And by the way, Expanding Electrons, thank you so much. We're having a great discussion in chat, I see.
Oh, yes. So this is from Darren. Darren's very passionate about this, and I think I've simplified his basic question, but it really stems about how we are letting down our injured workers. And she's wondering, do you support Senator Sanders' call for federal oversight of state work comp systems? Feels like we are really letting our injured workers down in California, and wonder what you thought about that.
Yeah, so, you know, in California, we have a lot of issues that I think that most people just keep saying they're state issues. But I think at the federal level, there is always something that we can do. And that is always done by incentives, right? You know, here in California, I used to work in construction, and I used to see how workman's comp used to work. In fact, my boyfriend, he's actually one of the people who was injured here in California. And after you meet a certain amount of days, you're kicked off the program. So you either have to, you're rushed to either settle with the company that you were hurt with. And the deals aren't really there. And there's really no support at the state level to guide you through the process. And so there's really no oversight. I mean, so a lot of these companies are getting away with really murder. They're paying out people for fractures to their spine, you know, at $10,000, $17,000 when they know that the lifelong care is going to be well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's just one of the reasons why I support Medicare expansion for all, so that people are not stuck with these enormous bills that they're going to have to fork out of nowhere. I mean, the amount that people are being charged for doctor visits and follow-ups are absurd, and no one can afford them. So it just leaves more room for more injuries in the future. And I believe that we can have some real progress if the federal decides to have oversight in every state. And I'm telling you that because California has higher standards than other states. So I can't imagine what's happening in other states.
Yeah.
Wow. Know your stuff there.
Yeah, I think he's speaking in terms like what he's seeing in Washington. It feels like war against workers, and they're really being let down.
Absolutely.
So,
well, yeah, I mean, that's one. Yeah.
I think he's happy. Darren, you happy? Oh, Darren's happy. Okay.
Any other questions, Laura?
Well, there you go, folks. You have it. One candidate calling what is happening to the injured workers of America a genocide. The other candidate, a Democrat, calling it a war on injured workers. So we have a Republican saying it's a genocide on injured workers, another candidate from the other side saying it's a war on injured workers, yet nobody wants to put the injured workers issue on the table with any of the other issues from either party. Nobody wants to address the issue. And as we have heard from some of my prior videos, the Democrats come right out and tell us why they can't answer the question and correctly, as these candidates have. See, when the candidates are asked the question about workers' comp and the minimum federal standards, they give us the correct answers. The problem is our journalists in America and our progressive journalists are failing to ask the candidates the correct questions and press this issue so that the injured workers and the laborers of America have their grand bargain honored rather than stolen and taken away from us and our nose dragged through illegal mud and a maze that drives many men to the brink of insanity. A system that is intently allowing the state to be used as a tool to fleece and defraud men and women who labor, then that same state protecting the doctors and the other professionals behind state med tort and work comp laws is oppressive to the victims of this systemic oppressive, basically it's systemic patient abuse codified by the state because the state is profiting off the systemic abuse. That's why we need some federal oversight to come in and rein in these renegade states. Thank you and have a good day.